Hi, I've been looking at some posts on Facebook by friends, colleagues around the world who are now gearing up and preparing for online teaching. So I thought I'd throw together a very quick, hopefully, video on sharing our experiences here in China of teaching during the epidemic. Um, we're sort of coming out the other end. We're hoping to be back in school, hopefully, the beginning of week after next. So we've had about 3 months of experience with this, so I'm hoping this will be useful. Okay, so if I come in here and I have a look, our situation when we started, and this is back in January, was I joined a new group of schools that literally just starting up, and so at the start of their tech setup, we didn't have a setup. In the process of establishing a set virtual learning environment, establishing our management information system, etc., training staff, that had only literally just started when this all kicked off. Um, the nature of the schools that I work for are that they are a combination of international curriculum, various. There's the American project-based learning (PBL), British national curriculum, and also blended with the Chinese national curriculum. So you have a number of different curriculums we're working with. Our students are predominantly Chinese national, and their parents predominantly are not English speakers, or at least not native English speakers. This happened to us right at the beginning of Chinese New Year when literally everybody, our staff, our students, our parents, were scattered across the world. With the exception of Antarctica, I don't think we had anybody there, but who knows? We had all our teachers, all our students in every continent across the world when this kicked in, and we were told basically that lessons were going to go online. Some of our staff were what was it under isolation in certain places. Other staff hadn't, of course, they'd gone on holiday and not taken their laptop with them. It was basically sort of, if you wanted to pick a bad time to do it, this was the best time, yeah, or the worst time. And then to further, what was it add to this? Of course, we are in China. Google, forget it. YouTube, forget it. Without a VPN now, whereas the school has its own, it has a license to pipe through to Hong Kong. We can't assume that the students have access to a VPN. So whatever we were going to provide had to be available in China. So a lot of the resources that were out there, we couldn't use. Right. So that was basically our situation at the beginning of the outbreak. Okay, so we had a look at what we were doing, and we had to look at the teachers and getting them ready to prepare. So, first things first, we had to look at what experience we had at hand and what tools we had at hand. Now, even though we can't use Google here, we did have Office 365, and we did have access to a number of different Chinese apps, such as WeChat Work, such as QQ, etc. And so we had a look at, okay, well, what are the teachers comfortable using? What would the parents be comfortable using? And how can we get something out to them? It was never going to be a one-size-fits-all experience with us. We just weren't established long enough in order to be able to do that. Although we're working towards that now. Yeah. So we had to look at what we had, look at what resources, and then we had to think about how we're going to deliver these lessons. So there's a combination. You'll hear these terms such as synchronous and asynchronous lessons. Okay, what that means is that synchronous would be something like face-to-face learning with your students, with them all on their iPads or their laptops, and you're using something like Zoom or Xiaoyu we would be using here in China as well. And that would be run over a period of, say, 40 minutes, realistically, an hour max, yeah, whereby you're teaching and you're interacting with students. That one has proved to be very, very popular with both the parents and both the students. There's something nice about having a teacher at the other end to talk to you, to give you feedback, and also to know that there are other students at the same time and they're not all by themselves. So I'm a big, big, big fan of synchronous teaching. The other advantage of synchronous teaching is that because you can Zoom allows you to share your screens, etc. You can show things. You can work online on the whiteboard. It does cut down on the amount of preparation teachers have to put in. I'm going to come to that one later on. The next version then, however, is asynchronous lessons. Now, as I said, we had teachers all over the world. So we would have teachers that were in 8 hours behind China, 8 hours ahead of China. The idea of them getting up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to deliver a lesson that should be 8 o'clock in China wasn't really realistic. So we obviously had to go for asynchronous lessons. And this would be a case of putting on PowerPoints, uploading videos, etc., making sure worksheets are there to come back and forth. Again, that will work as well. That's never going to be as popular with, say, parents or students and will require, if anything, more work to set up. But you're going to always have to have something like that in place, because you will have faced technical issues like maybe the power will cut off at somebody's house, or the computer will break down, or something will happen, yeah? And so if you've got something asynchronous, or like a lesson plan or a PowerPoint that you can bring up and put on place and say, okay, fine, go to this and work on this one as well as your synchronous teaching, that's pretty effective. Okay, so you've got synchronous, asynchronous. Right. At this moment in time, the tech community is fully aware of the needs, and they are throwing loads and loads and loads of free resources. Zoom in China removed the 40-minute limit on group calls. BrainPop and other organizations said, okay, fine, use our resources for free. Obviously, the idea being is that you'll use it and you'll like it, and then you'll also keep on using it after and then start paying them. But definitely go out there and have a look at what's available, because there's loads, yeah? Right. However, there's a caveat to that. Try to limit and try to agree where possible, and I understand this isn't always possible, but try to limit the amount of platforms you're going to use. I can't really emphasize this enough. It was always better, if possible, to use one platform that all the students know where to go to, all the teachers know where to go to, all the parents know what to go to. That means there's one set of training materials, one set of resources that your tech department have to support. If there's a problem, there will be problems, I guarantee it. Try to narrow it down. Now, the issues that we had here, for instance, is that we would have, say, what was worked for, say, the Chinese national staff wouldn't necessarily work for the international staff, and vice versa. Here, for instance, things like, while you can get English versions of, say, QQ, they're very limited, and you frequently, when you get past the first page, you're frequently hit with a wall of Chinese, which you can sort of navigate around, but requires some extra training. So you've got to think about these things. Try to narrow it down, and think of the parents and students who are thinking, okay, right, I have to learn yet another system. If you do so, please, I can't emphasize that enough, try to keep it simple for them. Teachers, please, I've seen lots of things of this, and I've heard it from here, and teachers online, I'm hearing them preparing. You want to do your best, and you know this is going out in the public, and you want to produce an all singing, all dancing, animation all over the place, PowerPoints, videos, and everything. And it's taking you 3 hours to do a 10-minute lesson, or 10-minute section of a lesson. If that's happening, you're doing it wrong. It's not worth the amount of effort you're putting in. Keep it simple. Yeah, it may be wonderful and flashy for that 10 minutes, but you'll be exhausted, and that's not sustainable. If it's just a simple case, and this is why I'm saying that your synchronous lessons, if possible, and bandwidth and what it allows, etc., I would always go with that, with maybe just pushing back and forth documents, Google Docs or Word documents, etc. Yeah, keep it simple. You have to have time off. You can't work 24 hours over a sustained period of time. And for us, this has been a sustained period of time, 3 months effectively. Yeah, so you have to think about reasonable. What is a reasonable expectation in terms of preparation? Try to keep whatever you do back so they can be reviewed by the students after. There will be times in which a student's computer will go down, or times maybe where they have to go out for whatever reason. I mean, it could, for instance, it might have to go to the hospital to be checked out. You just don't know. So basically, keep your resources there. So if they miss it, for instance, you can record Zoom lessons, for instance, yeah. Have them there so that anybody who's missed it, they can come back and view it then. Okay. Um, we were very good at this. I understand there are people out there that say this is my resource and I don't want to share it. I've worked really hard at it, and I understand that. However, in these times, it's always better share your resources, because the more we share and the more we can pick up from each other, the easier our life is going to be, because we will be spending a lot of time feeding, giving feedback, providing support, etc. If we can cut some corners by sharing resources between that, that will make a lot of difference. And also, you get to see some excellent lessons. That's brilliant. I would definitely want to use that in the future. I mean, this has been incredible. CPD, what was it doing this period? Not only our tech skills of our teachers have improved, but definitely the general teaching skills of our teachers have been exposed to so many different ways of delivering lessons. It's been great in that respect. Sorry. Expected to go wrong. Okay, right. We had many experiences of even things you wouldn't expect to have problems. Like, for instance, we had SharePoint, or was it basically grind to a halt? Not because of SharePoint itself, but because the simple fact that everybody is going to be working online, is going to be working from home, they're going to be streaming videos. Everything is going to slow. It's simple as that. And so, whatever you do, you have to prepare. Okay, so what happens if? And there may be occasions where it literally just shuts down. How do you get the work out to them if you can't do this? Yeah. So, for instance, let's say we had the SharePoint instance. It shut down. What was it? How do we get the information out to them? We had to use alternative methods to do that. Okay, always have in the back of mind what could happen if it goes wrong, because at some point it's going to. Okay, students and parents. Okay, right. Think about this when you're doing your lessons. Can they access it? They may be on holiday and they may have the only device they may have to access this might be a mobile phone. I mean, our students are from a rather wealthy background to a private school, so they could go out and they could buy another device. But of course, if say they were in quarantine, they'd have to wait for delivery, which might be delayed, etc. But you have to think, okay, right, if I'm delivering this, how are they interacting with it? How can I make it simple? Now, thankfully, smartphones have got a lot better, and you can actually do a lot on them. But that may be the only device. They might not have a laptop. They might not even have an iPad or anything. Yeah, think about it. How accessible it is. If also think about what sort of device it is. You may have the very best GarageBand lesson to go out there, but if all your students don't have Macs or don't have the software that's with it, it's not going to work. Yeah. So, okay, you have to think, do my students have access to the device, the software, whatever that they're using? Now, the vast majority of people out there will have good IT skills, but you have to assume that they have limited knowledge. The reason I'm saying this is that, I frequently hear this idea that the students are digitally native, etc., and they just get it. That's not actually true. They need training specifically in stuff such as, using spreadsheets, using attachments, sharing documents. You'd be surprised at what they don't know. The students on the whole will be faster to pick it up, but I guarantee that the parents will be behind that curve. And whatever you're doing, you're going to have to try to share this with them and try and support them through this. Now, we had added difficulty, of course, that the majority of our parents don't speak English, so we had to have our documentation translated, and where possible, we will use pictograms, etc., to provide support. And we had to put support in place. Our admin department, our IT department have been amazing. They've been fielding a lot of the a lot of the questions. So my job has been providing our admin support with basically a frequently asked question list, whereby they look at it and say, okay, if I have this problem, do this, do that, and if they can't then solve it, they then kick it back to me, and then we try to deal with it. Again, I come back to it. Keep it simple. Whatever you're doing, there may be a wonderful virtual tour of a museum or something, but if it has too much bandwidth, if it requires a device with too big a specification, the chances are it's going to fail. I can't emphasize how the beauties of a face-to-face interaction, a PowerPoint, a Word document, they're really cool. Really keep it simple. Feedback. These people, the parents, the students, they're very much in isolation by themselves. They want to know that the education is going on and they're being worked at. Now, it's not sustainable for us to give complete feedback all of the time. You'll have burnout. So, but little bits of feedback, on regular intervals. The pastoral team is really good on this one. Whereby they collate any issues overall, and they will send out generic they will send out newsletters or weekly information drops to the parents, and it's just a case of making sure that they know that we're out there, they know we're supporting them, we know we're trying to help them. Be supportive and be understanding. Students will want support, parents will want support, they will have frustrations, they will have demands. It's not working for me because of whatever. And try to be understanding where possible. However, you will have limits. I will come on to this later on, but it's not reasonable to expect to respond to, say, 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday to a parent wanting some feedback. Yeah. What they may be asking for, they may want something on a device that they particularly like, or a portal that they particularly like, or a friend is recommended for them. But the answer will be that that's not what we support, etc. So you're going to have to be relatively firm but supportive in terms of what is acceptable, what is not. For instance, my communication with my class, I say that I am available for communications between certain hours of a day, on certain days of the week. Don't email me on the weekend regarding to questions of work, because I will not be answering. I'll be doing other things like the timetable. Yeah, okay. Testing and exams. Right, okay. We've had to run our mock exams here online. The reason for that is that, unlike the UK, we probably will be running our June exams because we're coming out of this now. So we had to give them some form of mock exam assessment, and we give lower assessments after that. So the only way we could do that is run it via, say, a Zoom experience, yeah, whereby you'd have one invigilator, say, to 20 candidates. And now, unfortunately, you can only see 9 or a certain number of students at a time. But what you can do is you can make sure that the students all have their cameras on, and you can select each student and randomly go through them and check them, yeah, to make sure that they're looking at the screen. Make sure their mic is on when they're doing this. Now, obviously, if they're doing that, they need to make sure there's no background noise. But it is a good idea to find out if their mic's on, you can hear somebody telling them the answer. All right? Okay. However, with the best will in the world, the temptation for them to cheat is going to be there. I mean, they've got you've seen the camera and the screen, but you're not seeing what windows are on that screen. They could be looking at something else. So keep an instant log. I've set up an online instant log, as you would with any regular exam. Every teacher that was invigilating had to fill that in, no matter if there was instant, not instant, just so we can trace it back and we can have a look at, if there was an instant doing this. Pastoral team support, again, is crucial here. The head of department and the invigilators were busy. Invigilating or supporting any questions regarding what questions were set. We rely heavily on a pastoral team to chase up, say, students that haven't turned up or haven't logged on to the invigilation on time, etc. Pastoral team, definitely, they were really great during that time. Design the questions. Okay. Asking simple fact-based questions or yes-no questions or something like that doesn't have much point to them, to be honest with you, because obviously they could Google that straight away. I mean, in our case, we even had to have the kids, they had to have their mobile phones with us, because if there was a problem with the screen and, say, the computer or internet went out, they had to be able to message us with their phone. So that would, we weren't JCQ compliant anyway, in any way, shape or form. But what we did was we changed the type of questions we asked. We made them more open ended, so it was a case of, say, take this. For instance, I'm computer science, so I gave them some pseudocode and said to turn this into code, or a problem and then code for it over time, which is quite individual, and it's sort of very easy to identify if somebody's copied somebody else because they tend to make the same mistakes. Yeah. Again, plan for a backup. People will, expect students to not turn up on time for whatever reason, miscommunications, whatever. Ideally, keep a separate paper backed up so you can give to them at a later date. Okay. Safeguarding. Right, okay. This one's quite important, obviously. Because we're not in school, but we are interacting with the students online, I have to give this a considerable amount of thought to safeguarding. Okay, firstly, location. Now, if you notice here, I'm here with the wall behind me, so my wife is not going to go walking back and forth behind me. That's always a good location. I am dressed. Relatively formally. Yeah, I've got a shirt or tie on, but relatively formally, I'm not in my pajamas, and that's actually quite important. There's no major music or TV show or whatever playing in the background. We need to think about that. Now, that's from the teacher's point of view. From a student's point of view, ideally, now I understand there's going to be constraints on this, but ideally, you don't want them doing their online lesson in their bedroom. You'd want it in a communal area within earshot of the parents. Yeah, that's a reassurance mechanism, yeah, for everybody. I understand there will be younger siblings, there'll be parents working. It might not be possible, but that's the ideal. Obviously, presentation. Students should be told that they need to be dressed appropriately, not in their underwear, or not in their, sleepwear, etc. Because they might just get out of bed and whatever. No, they need to be dressed, not necessarily in school uniform, but dressed appropriately. Thankfully, we've not had a problem with that. We have had issues. We haven't had issues. We have been aware of issues whereby we have to think about who's watching. Now, there are 20 people, possibly 20, 30 people looking at this video. There may be somebody in the background recording this, even like a parent recording it. This could be shared out. Yeah. So you've got to be careful of whatever there is said there, that there is no confidential information being shared. Like, for instance, you don't share telephone numbers, you don't share email addresses, you during the video. You can use separate chat facilities while doing it, so it doesn't directly pass through the video. Yeah. Just be aware of what information is going back and forth. And also try to make sure that you keep on top of the kids, that if they try to volunteer information, that it could be confidential, that you try to make sure that you can close that down. Zoom, for instance, allows a facility to turn mics off, etc., or turn a camera off if something happens. So just be aware of that, okay? You need to make sure there's a facility for logging instances. Obviously, this needs to be an online Moza system. I've had to set that up, whereby if there's an incident or a potential incident that's logged, then it's alerted then to your e-safety coordinator and your safeguard lead, so that they know what's happening, and we can deal with that appropriately as best we can. And we have to raise awareness. So, for instance, we've had to send out information to teachers to make sure they're aware, send out information to students and to parents, basically to say, okay, think of these things, because they're inside their own homes, maybe when they're having these lessons, they feel in basically a safe, comfortable area, and so they won't assume that, for instance, who's walking behind them or what's happening around them. It's just a case of raising awareness and also allowing them to know that there is a facility that if they need to flag something up, that there is a mechanism for doing that, possibly with your counsellor, etc. If they need to draw it up. So basically, it's making the safeguarding procedures we've got reasonable. Okay, nice to each other. Okay. This is a very trying time for everybody. Staff, not just the teachers, but also the admin, the tech admin, they're all going to be working really, really hard doing this with lots and lots of frustrations, etc. Trying to support. So that definitely needs to be kept in mind, as well as which staff may be themselves ill. They may be, well, if they're ill, they should be resting, but or they may have friends or family that might be ill. So there may be extra worries or on top of that you'll have to think about when working with your colleagues. And the other thing is this: try to keep it 9 to 5. The temptation as we're online and we have all this time because we can't go anywhere is that you'll work at something at, say, 10 o'clock at night, for example. I have been there, or later. And you say, all right, I'll just send this message off now. Now, the idea is you're not expecting them, the recipient maybe, to answer at that time, but they will have it on their mobile phone. It will ping them up. It may wake them up. It may disturb whatever family time they're having or time away. Try to limit the amount of messages, emails, etc., to what would be normal working hours. Everybody does need some downtime away from work, if at all possible. And reach out to those that that might be by themselves. And we have a number of teachers, or had a number of teachers. Thankfully, most of them have come out now. We're in quarantine. It's normal when you come into the country, whatever, you go into 14 days quarantine. I've had 5 weeks of it because I moved from China to Korea and then back to China. Right, so your staff, the teachers, your colleagues, they're going to feel lonely, they're going to feel isolated. So what we did was, or what I did was, I put together a on virtual pub quiz, in which everybody got to teams together virtually online using, was it WeChat, we were, and presented this out using Zoom. And it was like a regular pub quiz with like the picture round, the music round, everybody answered it and sent it back in. And it was just a bit of fun. Little things like that, can go a long way just to make sure that everybody feels that they're still part of the community, particularly those that are isolated, that they've not been forgotten about. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And that was basically my summary. I hope you found it was useful. If I'll turn comments on when I upload this, so if you have any comments or anything else you want to do, if you want me to maybe do a video on something more specific, please let me know. Thank you very much.